Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Victory podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host. I'm coming to you on the early afternoon of August 6th, 2025. Going to kick things off with COVID. Um, so, yesterday, RFK Jr., the Health and Human Services Secretary, came out with a statement basically saying that they were going to get rid of COVID vaccines simply because they don't prevent the spread of COVID. And that probably will not stop people from getting their sixth, seventh, or eighth booster. But that is something that is happening on this issue. The other thing, and it's not specific to COVID, but it is somewhat related. So during the COVID pandemic, someone by the name of Dr. Vinay Prasad did a lot of exposure of some of the stuff that the folks who insisted that we were supposed to live in fear during COVID, using the science as kind of a billy club to whack people over the head. Well, the science, the science, the science, the science. Vinay Prasad was one of those people that said, well, the science isn't exactly lining up with what they think. In May, Dr. Vinay Prasad joined the Food and Drug Administration as the top regulator of vaccines, as well as expensive biological medicines. So, but in the lead up to the middle of last week, apparently Laura Loomer, this journalist who kind of lurks in the background with a lot of things related to Trump, she attacked him for 4-year-old social media posts criticizing Donald Trump. The Wall Street Journal joined her. They won with stunning speed, and on Tuesday, Prasad resigned. That would have been Tuesday, the 29th of July. And Alex Berenson wrote a piece on the 31st about the whole ordeal. I'm going to share that in the description to this podcast. I don't want to read it in its entirety, but I just wanted to put into context here the fact that a lot of people aren't familiar with this name, Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer, um, journalist. Some would regard her as a conspiracy theorist. Um, Take that in any direction you want. Um, I really dislike Laura Loomer for a lot of reasons. A lot of it has to do with her personal attacks on people. When Governor DeSantis in Florida was running for president in the early stages of the primaries, before he dropped out after the Iowa caucus, um, Laura Loomer was the one who basically said Casey DeSantis faked her breast cancer. Yes, this woman, Laura Loomer, went to the lengths to basically accuse someone who was ill with cancer that she faked it. So there's a lot of reasons why I don't like Laura Loomer, but one of the things that's happening in Trump too, she's lurking in the background and telling Trump who to fire and who not to, and in a lot of different avenues. She's done some stuff at the Pentagon, and now she has struck the FDA. And it's solely because Vinay Prasad happened to criticize Donald Trump back in 2020 or whatever when things were going on with COVID. And there's a bigger story here. I'll let Alex Berenson communicate it. Um, but that happened not quite a week ago, or he resigned a little over a week ago, and Alex Berenson's story was a little less than. And If you don't know the name Laura Loomer, you need to, because she wields an awful lot of power in Trump too. Secondly, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm going to put this into some context here. Um, if you recall several weeks ago when we sent B 2 and other aircraft and even naval craft into position to deal with the multiple nuke locations in Iran, and there was a Saturday in which those attacks happened. Um, Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of many in MAGA to criticize it because it's not America first. And I wrote a piece at that time. Um, and America first for her is we don't start wars, we don't engage in military conflict, or at least that's the interpretation some people could take from her comments. And she's also been critical of the fact that there are not enough people in the Trump administration who are reading the base of MAGA Americans. So you had to go all the way to the British press to see this story. This is the Daily Mail. And this appeared last Saturday. Marjorie Taylor Greene threatens dramatic breakup with Trump over core base frustration that could upend entire Republican Party. That headline is a bit dramatic. The Democrats have a whole lot more problems than Republicans right now. Um, but the fact that you had to go to a British newspaper to read this is pretty stunning for me at least. I will include this in the description to the podcast, and I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but she quote, I think the Republican Party has turned its back on America first and the workers and just regular Americans. Pardon me. um, she basically makes the contention that Republican leaders are going toward their reflexive neocon position, which is let's start military conflicts in various parts of the world, flex our muscles there, and whatever. She goes on to say that she's not afraid of House Speaker Mike Johnson and a variety of other things. Um, the 51-year-old lawmaker wants to stop foreign aid, continue to use Doge to shave down government expenditures and waste, stop adding to the national debt, and be on the lookout for inflation. Like, what happened to those issues? You know that I don't know what happened to the Republican Party. I really don't. But I'll tell you one thing, the course that it's on, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I just don't care anymore, she said, sounding frustrated. So imagine Marjorie Taylor Greene and potentially a group of other hardcore America First types who don't like what we did in Iran, um, don't like what potentially is about to unfold with Ukraine and Russia and some other locations. Just imagine those people not being in the Republican caucus and declaring themselves independents. There's no shot they declare themselves Democrats. Um, so what are they going to do? Declare themselves a America First party? Don't know. And this story really doesn't go into that, but it's something that is lurking under the surface politically that is worth watching. Secondly, related to all of the political maneuvering right now, is events that are happening in Texas. So, in Texas, they have the governor declared a special session and they're dealing with redistricting. A third thing that I'm going to add in the description to the podcast is a story from the Heritage Foundation that is dated a couple years, because the U.S. Census Bureau admitted that their 2020 census count for the 50 states included significant overcounts in some states that didn't deserve it and undercounts in states that had more people than what they were given credit for. And Texas believes, because of their population growth, it makes sense here in 2025, midway through the decade, where there would be a new census in 2030, and from that redistricting, um, and the shaping of uh, Congress, Congress, and state Senate and state House seats, and local government and everything else. So someone with the U.S. Census admitted that in 2022. And that's giving energy to the folks in Texas. And what happened after the current legislative session, Governor Greg Abbott said, um, I'm going to declare a special session and I want the state legislature to focus on redistricting, meaning there is more Republican power in Texas than we know. And it needs to start showing itself on the congressional districting maps, um, and other maps that would affect the makeup of the state legislature. And the thing that has, as a result of this, that included, on Monday, uh, because the Democrats fled the state, went to Chicago, um, uh, Republicans in the state legislature in Texas, or the state house, issued arrest warrants for Democrats because they can't do anything in a special session because their colleagues aren't there. And so that happened in Austin. And you now have Gavin Newsom in California talking about redistricting. You have the governor here in the state of New York talking about redistricting. And if you think those states are going to be kind to Republicans, you're crazy. And you also have Massachusetts talking about redistricting. The harsh reality is this is all about political power. That's what redistricting is. That is what drawing congressional lines and state legislature lines and potentially even local government lines is all about. It's about raw political power, the ability to have a certain group of people being able to impose their will as the majority and displaying their political power. But at its core here, we're also seeing people who are motivated selfishly politically when our founders, specifically John Adams, a number of others, they stood up and said, the only way our system of self government survives is for people to govern themselves by morality and ethics dictated by the gospel. And when you see raw political power and the selfish motives from that, that really isn't the gospel in effect here. And that's what's going on with that issue presently. And that's going to swing me to my final issue this week, which included some rather interesting comments from a current member of the United States Congress. And this piece, the thing I share in the description is going to be comments from U.S. Senator Tim Scott in an interview with Glenn Beck that happened just the other day. That is worth you hearing. But last weekend, we had a Democratic U.S. Congresswoman stood up at some kind of a seminar or forum in Mexico City, no less, and said the following. And Delia Ramirez is a Democratic U.S. representative from the state of Illinois. And she told the audience while speaking in Spanish in Mexico City, "I'm a proud Guatemalan before I'm an American." Now, did she say that because she knew she was speaking to a Hispanic audience and it would be well received? Or that's something she really believes? But she had to know that comment would end up in the American press. Because as a member of the United States House, having taken an oath of office sometime in, I believe it was early January, you're basically swearing allegiance to the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And when someone says, "I'm a proud Guatemalan before I'm an American," that leaves an awful lot of pause there. Because if you're more interested in your Guatemalan heritage than being an American, then why are you running for office in the state of Illinois? We've also seen this kind of rhetoric from U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from the state of Minnesota. She's Somalian, and she's made many comments in the past about how Somalia is, she feels a a drive and a focus on doing things that's best for Somalia or Somalians in America. And it's like, wait a second, you're a member of the U.S. Congress. Why aren't you doing things on behalf of all Americans while representing uh, the group that you're familiar with from Minnesota? So these comments by Ramirez, one could argue she should resign from the House. If if your loyalty is to Guatemala before the United States, if your loyalty is to Somalia before the United States, why don't we have members of Congress that are challenging these people, in their service on behalf of the country? A very strong case can be made. And this situation with Ramirez, Delia Ramirez, is about assimilation, and Ilhan Omar. It's about assimilation. It's about, you come here and you assimilate to the American way of life. And this is one of the other things that is driving some of this chatter about the power of Islam, or the growing power of Islam in our country. Um, Islam is not what shaped the Judeo-Christian ethic that is a part of America's founding. And frankly, if we had any of the founders that came back today in the 21st century, in 2025, and saw the behavior of some of the elected officials in our country, they would be the first ones in line saying, "Get your pitchforks and muskets, because it's time for another revolution." And they would probably be telling Americans, what weren't you taught about American history all along? What were you not taught about the founding of the country? And what dots did you not connect in realizing the importance of maintaining the system of self-government that we have? I mean, at some level, this gets to bad education that is happening in our country, but at its core, when you have a loyalty that is something to other than the United States, and you're a public official, you're stepping into some very, very tenuous territory. And don't be surprised when colleagues in the House, or if it happens to be the U.S. Senate or whatever the body is, don't be surprised to hear those people um, speak up and ask for your resignation, or call you someone who is a traitor, or someone who's engaged in treason, because those kinds of accusations are going to manifest themselves pretty quickly. Um, that is all I have this week on this edition of his Vine and Victory podcast. A reminder, we are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube, dropping a new column on something that's been very aggressively in the news recently. Um, and that's the only length of a spoiler that's going to come there. And until next time, folks, stay vigilant, stay focused. Always, always, always be watching what government does. Um, uh, because if we don't watch them, they will do whatever they want. And that has a spiritual basis in it as well. So until next time, God bless and goodbye.